how's it going, everyone? Thanks for joining me on a special edition of the Music Reviewer Podcast, a YouTube-only edition of the Music Reviewer Podcast. Don't really do these too often. I will try to do these more, but this is just going to be a fun episode. Nothing too formal or serious. This is just going to be a Christmas song list review from GQ magazine. No, I don't actually read GQ. This is just me going over a ranking of the best new Christmas songs of 2020 that happens to be this publication. But I have nothing against GQ or anything. I just don't read them. And there's not really much stuff talking about new Christmas music because really, I don't think anyone wants to hear anyone, especially me, discuss the classics like Jingle Bell Rock and Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Silent Night or those old crooner editions of those classic Christmas tracks, because everyone's heard them thousands of times and we all know they're classics. These are new tracks by somewhat contemporary artists. And I thought this would be interesting because we have 11 songs that they ranked. So basically what I'll do is I'll just re-rank it in my own opinion. It's just my opinion. Don't take it too seriously. And I will also reveal the ranking GQ gave it. And these are all new Christmas songs once again. So yeah, with no further ado, let's get right to it. And just a little bit of ad-lib. In no way, shape, or form am I endorsing Christmas as the official holiday of this podcast. Whatever you celebrate is totally cool with me. This is just for the sake of the genre of Christmas music. First track was, I ranked the lowest, was Naughty List by Liam Payne and Dixie D'Amelio. Pretty lackluster track, some sanitary production on here with some skeletal trap production and this cheap syncopated acoustic guitar accompaniment that's just doesn't really do much for me. Sounds like the kind of thing you would hear when you walk into Five Below or like a cheap retailer like that, those types of playlists. If you listen to last week's Best and Worst Track of the Week, there was some of that there with the latest Dan and Shay Christmas track. And Dixie on here, from what I understand, she's a TikTok new age celebrity. I guess she has some vocal talent, but here on this track, she's definitely buried on the chorus for a reason. She is singing against Liam Payne here, so I don't blame her for not singing better than Liam Payne, but they completely bury her on here. Like, they're trying to cover her up. The wailing vocal lines at the end sound pretty damn generic. It's kind of the same thing that happened with the Dan and Shay track, too. They really didn't make the song that much more appealing or exciting. And overall, it's just the most lackluster track. It wasn't god-awful, but and GQ rated it 10 out of the 11 tracks. So next was Christmas Without You by Ava Max. This was ranked 9th by GQ. I actually gave it 10th. I didn't hate this song, but I expect more from what I've heard from Ava Max to make a better track. I like the intro on here, but as the track developed, I just didn't really like the direction it went in. It was pretty predictable once it got to it. And the transition, there's a really strange transition to the bridge. The bridge just sounds quite generic as well. But after the bridge, we do get a nice isolated chorus. And there's some nice vocal runs thrown in, I guess, that display some of Ava Max's potential. And the Christmas elements definitely are present here as well. But just really in an atypical way. So basically this track just suffered from being very average. That was number 10. Next is number 9. GQ gave this track 7 in the list. This was Holiday in Jamaica by Shaggy, Neo, and DingDong. Quite an odd pairing here. I don't think anyone's really cared or, I guess, heard from Shaggy since his hit in the 90s, It Wasn't Me, and his random appearance in a Scooby-Doo live-action movie. And then Neo's kind of had a resurgence in his career. He did have one hit enter to the Hot 100 this year with Jeremiah, which wasn't bad. And then I don't know who DingDong is. I'm guessing he's just a Jamaican artist. Um, Interesting about this track, it obviously has like this dancehall Jamaican flair to it. Neo can definitely pull off the accent. He sounds his voice does sound really processed, though. It just doesn't really give me the typical sort of organic tone that I like in Neo's voice. It just kind of sounds a little synthetic, if you will. But he can kind of blend into the Jamaican sort of dance hall. Like Drake tries to do that in his music and he completely fails at it. Neo can at least do it. Shaggy sounds like he hasn't changed a bit since the 90s, which I guess that's a good thing. It's heavily rooted in typical dancehall style. The track can become a little repetitive and monotonous. Once it gets to the point, you're kind of just sticking around on that same point for a really long time. The rap verse towards the end gives the track a little bit more energy. I think that's DingDong, and there's some interesting electronic elements thrown in, some nice vocal harmonies as well throughout the track. I thought it was nice. This next track came in at number 8 on this list, but it also was given number 8 by GQ. And this is Underneath the Mistletoe by Kelly Clarkson and Brett Eldredge. If you listen to Best and Worst Track of the Week a couple weeks ago, I did review this track. I guess in the context of that episode, I kind of made this track sound like it was terrible. But I honestly, in the context of this list, it's not the worst thing on here. At least it has some energy to it compared to some of the other stuff, specifically like the Ava Max track. It's upbeat and poppy. There's some chirpy guitar and keyboard work on here that kind of structures the track that I kind of dug. The sounds very indistinct overall, especially in terms of Kelly Clarkson's performance. I'm not sure if I'd be able to tell if this was Kelly Clarkson, if I was just out and about somewhere. It kind of just sounds like a typical well-sung pop track by a female artist, but it kind of just doesn't remind me of Kelly Clarkson's best work. Brett Eldredge sounds interesting in this context, but he kind of just reminds me of the dude from Old Dominion. He sounds almost exactly the same, like a carbon copy. I'm not sure if that's exactly a good thing. Brett Eldredge typically is a country artist, though. The track's just a little sanitary overall. Bridge is a little clunky, but it's not the worst thing on here. The next track is probably one of the more interesting tracks on this list. I put it at number 7. GQ put it at number 5 because it's by an actual band, specifically an indie band from the UK. They're sort of well known at this point, but they're kind of just still... I don't think they've quite broken into the American side of indie rock, if you will. And I know the first time I was really introduced to them was with a quarantine video where they covered The Less I Know, The Better by Tame Impala with Miles Kane, which was a pretty excellent cover. And yeah, this track is titled It's Going to Be a Cold Winter by The Blossoms. And typical Christmas song opening aesthetics, some bells thrown in, but then it quickly turns into like this fast-paced adult alternative type track with some 80s pop flair to it, and the track overall features this cool slappy and funky bass line along with some thin neck strumming guitar tracks and some acoustic guitar layered in. Track kind of has like this nice aged nature to it. It really feels like a relic, like it was recorded back in the 80s and the 90s with the songwriting and the production thrown in. And interestingly, this track is about hating Christmas. It's about not liking Christmas or the winter, but they kind of do it in a tongue-in-cheek way. It's not bad. It's a bit short. I would have liked it to be a little bit more developed, but it's different from the rest of the tracks. I thought it was quite nice. Next track on this list, number 6. GQ actually gave this number 2. Oh Santa by Mariah Carey featuring Ariana Grande and Hudson. Another track that made it onto Best and Worst Track of the Week this past week, actually. Kind of had to give this a few listens to kind of make sure I was happy with where I placed it. Overall, I do like the song. There's some pretty interesting elements to it. There's a nice typical sleigh bell opening to it that kind of just opens it up, and we get this weird prelude introduction as well with these gang vocals utilized in the intro. That kind of remind me of like an Avril Lavigne type teen pop track, like "I Don't Like Your Girlfriend," something of that nature. But then the track quickly transitions into like this fast-paced pop R&B track with some funky and groovy bass lines that give the track some energy. These are all virtuoso vocalists here, and they all play off each other quite well. They don't all try to outdo each other here. I will say the track does have an annoyance with the percussive clap elements that are a bit piercing and poorly mixed. There's some typical moments you would expect from a Mariah Carey track with some ridiculous register exploring in the vocals. I'm not sure if that was Ariana Grande doing that though. Either way, they sound great. The track gets to the point quite early on though, so it's fine for whatever it is, but once you kind of the track gets to what it's trying to do, we don't really get anything else exciting until the close, where we have a nice and exciting, fun closing to the track with some more nice and exciting vocal runs, and then also some gang vocal chants towards the end of the track that remind me a little bit of, like, for some reason, Outkast's Bombs Over Baghdad. This track is kind of just all over the place. You should definitely listen to it. This next track coming in at number 5 was actually ranked 11th by GQ, but the title of the track is Christmas Is by Dolly Parton and Miley Cyrus. So I guess I liked it significantly more than what GQ gave it, but yeah, I don't know if it's maybe because I recently reviewed Miley's latest album, but there's some nice lush string instrumentation here, some lovely plucked guitar accompaniment, and a serene opening to it, and there's a nice aged-like quality to Parton's voice on here. It's almost whispering at times, but it works really well. I'm not a fan of like this flute melody that goes over the chorus though. It kind of just reminds me of a corny sort of Titanic-like element, and it definitely the theme song to the Titanic. And this track definitely takes a religious turn with a gospel climatic moment, especially when you look at the lyrics too. It's not a bad track overall. I thought it was nice, and I like when Parton and Cyrus collab as well. Next track was number 4 on this list, Holiday by Lil Nas X. GQ gave it 3, so pretty similar ranking. I did review this a few weeks ago too on Best and Worst Track of the Week, but I the more I listen to the track, the more I'm fine with it. I like it. There's a bouncy synth bass line that kind of guides the track, and there's some electronic keyboard elements on here that kind of I like how they pop out throughout the track. It gives the track some nice flavor. It's well written. Lil Nas X goes a little meta about his career here and how he kind of is aware of his one-hit wonder potential. Some nice lines lyrically as well. And then there's a rhythmic theme overall in the vocals that I think is quite catchy. The track just is really vibey, poppy, straightforward as well. Nowhere near as anthemic as Old Town Road, but I don't think that's the point. So yeah, that was number 4. Number 3 is Christmas Blues by Claudio featuring The Weeknd. GQ gave this 6, but I really thought this was one of the better tracks on this list. I never heard of Claudio, but there's a light and serene opening on this track. And vocally, there's some light la-la-las on here. So it's a slow R&B jam with a fat bass line. I really think the bass line's great on here. Some light and sensitive plucked guitar instrumentation, and everything's just light about this track. It's the vocals are whispering at times, and there's a lovely keyboard, some lovely keyboard melodies as well throughout the track, and some light percussion to kind of just provide more, sensitive accompaniment to everything. And I think overall it's just solid. So yeah, that was number 3. Number 2 is Holidays by Meghan Trainor and Earth, Wind and Fire. And GQ gave this number 4, but really, if it wasn't for number 1, this track would have just killed everything out of the park, because really number 1 and number 2 on this list, in my opinion, they kind of don't really play to the same league as everything below it. They're just in their own league, especially because this is an Earth, Wind, and Fire track, essentially. It should not be Meghan Trainor featuring Earth, Wind, and Fire. This should really just be Earth, Wind, and Fire allowing Meghan Trainor to play with them, because really, I'm not a huge fan of Meghan Trainor. She's fine for certain things, but wow. Everything here is just pulled off. To me, it just feels like a sister track to Let's Groove Tonight, essentially. And there's some nice, rich harmonies here, as expected from Earth, Wind, and Fire. And the vocals here are quite good for Meghan. I say she's quite solid, as she should be when collaborating with this band. Some funky nature, as expected. A nice and present groovy bass line. Some nice accompanying string and brass textures, and a nice key change towards the end to kind of just wrap everything up. Solid track, but I will say it wasn't enough to meet my opinion in GQs, I guess, because number one was just awesome. It's Not Christmas Until Somebody Cries by Carly Rae Jepsen. And, I think this is an artist I have not given their due diligence, because they really have a level of critical acclaim by this point. And I really should just try exploring the discography more, especially after listening to this. The track kind of just starts out with this melodic and agile bass line and thrown in. It's very bubblegum pop, but in a good way. This is kind of just playing to her strengths here. And I like the realist lyrical content here. Kind of just how the track explores the elements of being in a dysfunctional family around the holidays. It really hits the nail on the head. And then song-wise, there's a nice anticipation on the pre-chorus that's quite lovely. It's a humorous track. Overall, it's not too serious, and some nice muted guitar melodies as well thrown in that second verse, and a nice keytar. What it sounds like a guitar solo towards the end, and everything is just over this compound time signature. It's an incredible Christmas track. Definitely underrated. So yeah, that was that. Hope you enjoyed the list. This is going to be on YouTube only, once again. This isn't really meant to be too serious. Kind of just something fun I'd like to give you guys too, and to kind of throw in for the upcoming holiday. And if you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you celebrate something else, well, I hope that went well. And thanks for listening this year as well on the Music Reviewer podcast. Hope everyone's safe. Wear a mask if you can. But yeah, Christmas List 2020 by GQ magazine of best new Christmas tracks right there. And I will see you guys later. Take care of yourselves.